Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got something. Look, I try and dress these up as philosophy or something, but this is just a freaking rant. This is a rant about limited editions. It's the end of 2019 here. It's December 4th, 2019, and I've been thinking back about trends for the year. Thinking about, what's been the biggest trends? And this was inspired in part by my Gear Geeks Live. Last night we recorded the Gear of the Year episode. We're just talking about one of the big trends being limited editions. And that reminded me just how much 2019 has been a pain in the neck in that particular way. And so my plea, my impassioned plea that I would like to go with today is that in 2020, we need to limit the limited editions a little bit more because it's out of freaking hand, guys. So, first off, before I go any further, one thing. First, this isn't the first time I've talked about this. If you're hearing me like a broken record, that's probably because you've heard some of the other times I've talked about this. We talked about this some on Gear Geeks Live when we had Tommaso Moore on, who is a well-known collector of Spyderco sprint runs. We talked about that little issue, and he and I had some back and forth, and although I think I don't necessarily share his opinion about limited editions, he provides a reasonable defense for it. But more importantly, I've also talked about this more formally, that is, in my Knife Gripe series over on Knife News. I've got a series of 50 videos over there, each one complaining about something in the knife-making world, and I talked about limited editions, and in that case, I was really focused more on the companies that will make a design only for a certain number of items and then stop making it forever, like CKF or Giant Mouse used to do a lot of this. That kind of thing. But I'm done there. And then I talked about the fear of missing out, which is the psychological principle that limited editions manipulate to try and sell more stuff. That's why they're so effective at parting people from their money. And that's also why they're so damn ugly. But I have a whole video on fear of missing out that I think goes well as a companion piece to this. But this is a different video. This is an impassioned plea that we freaking need to stop with this for a little while, or at least calm your freaking heels, guys. Cool them, I guess. Calm them too. I don't care what you're doing to your heels, just as long as you stop making limited editions for 20 freaking minutes. One other thing I want to be very clear about is, what is a limited edition actually? So, every knife production every piece of gear is limited, right? I mean, at the very, very least, even if a company makes something for their entire time that they exist, companies stop, or things get discontinued after a couple of years. But there is a time when they are making reliable production of them, when you can get another one and another one and another one, and they are reasonably available at stores. That's not what I'm talking about here, right? I mean, every knife is limited. Even great knives are discontinued eventually. Slash Bowie. Sorry. Bad Sleesh Bowie cough lately. But anyways, that's not what I'm talking about. The other thing I'm not talking about is limited availability. There are lots of knives out there, for instance, like your Holt Spectre here, or your TRM Atom, or your North Arm Skaha, where it's just like, these are very hard to get right now. There aren't that many there aren't that many of them being made. The company is running at capacity, but there's also no plans to discontinue these models. They're just waiting basically to catch up. There's more demand than there is supply. That's a crappy situation, and I definitely hope that companies can really fire things up and get more of these guys shipping out. But at the same time, that's not what I'm talking about here. When I say limited edition, the kind that really gets my blood boiling is when a company kills the knife on day freaking one. When they do something like this. This is the Crkt Homefront 25th Anniversary Edition. And they, right there on the blade, 472 out of 500. That means that the day that this knife was released, it was dead. They decided that they weren't going to make any more of them than 500. And so as a result, this knife is a goner. It was DOA, basically. They decided they weren't going to make enough to meet the demand. They were just going to go on ahead and make those. And you know what? That really, really deeply sucks. You also get other things in the form of like factory sprint runs. This is a sprint run from Spyderco, and that they said very specifically, we're going to make a group of these and then we're going to stop making them. And as a result, these guys sold out very quickly and then got into high demand, and then the eBay scalpers got a hold of them and whatnot. And then you end up paying a bunch more for them, which is another one of the ugly things involved with all this. You can also get retail sprints. Like, this is the DLT Trading Para 3 Lightweight and M390 Steel. I picked this up because I'm a weak man, and I like the Para 3 Lightweight, and I like M390, so, there we go. But this is yet another form that a limited edition can take, where a given retailer orders a certain number of something, and then when those are gone, they're gone. I actually don't know for sure whether they've confirmed that they won't be making more of these. I hope they do make more of them. But nevertheless, that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a limited edition. Either where it's just like we're only making so many of them and here's the number of them that we're making. Maybe it's, oh, we're only making these for a short period of time. Or maybe it's just like, oh, we ordered a batch and then when they're gone, they're gone. All of those things drive me a little bit freaking crazy. So why does this bug me so damn much? Well, there are a bunch of reasons for this. I mean, to start with, watch the FOMO video. That lays bare sort of the bald-faced psychological manipulation involved with fear of missing out-based marketing. It's an ugly thing just to start with. I mean, given, this is something that companies have done since the beginning of freaking time. This is not a new thing. This is not something that's unique to the knife industry. The watch industry, Omega, is super guilty of limited editioning all the damn time. It's all based in sort of an ugly science to start with. The reason it's so effective is because it's exploiting a little bit of a hack in the human brain, so to speak. But, you know, that's one issue to start with. But the biggest issue for me is the availability issue. There is this sense where people are like, oh, wow, limited edition, it must be great. But in fact, I think it's exactly the opposite. A limited edition tool is a worse tool by its very definition. When you make a tool a sprint run or a limited edition, it is just worse. Flat out. Because let's think about it this way. One of the hallmarks of a really good tool is that you can use it, right? And when something becomes a collector's piece, it's harder to use. There are people who look at me like I'm freaking insane for actually carrying and using the M4 Spyderco Shaman that I have, or actually carrying this guy. They're like, no, come on, you can't, that's a collector's edition. But I do, because my knives have to be tools for me. I mean, they have to be things that I'm willing to use. And so when you use something, you're putting wear on it. You can't treat it like a safe queen. You can't leave it in the box. You can't, and so limited editions prevent that. It also means you can't replace it. You know, if you're just doing something cosmetic, it's just like, oh, well, you know, hey, we took a normal M390 paramilitary 3, and then we did it in orange scales. Wow, what an innovation. And they're selling that. Well, okay, whatever, that's fine. But when they make really compelling configurations available only in limited editions, for instance, the Crewwear and Micarta Spyderco Shaman, that was let's be real here, that was a shit show. Because they didn't make anywhere near enough of them, and nobody really was able to get them. I mean, I know of like 3 people on my entire Instagram following who were able to pick one up, and those folks went through all kinds of heck to do it. And so as a result, you have this thing that could be a really compelling tool, because the Shaman with Micarta is great, and Crewwear is a very nice steel, but they didn't make any of them, and so as a result, you can't freaking get them. And because there were so few of them, mostly what it ended up doing is making people angry. And that's the next thing that I think is a problem with limited editions, is that not only are they worse tools because you can't buy one and you can't replace it if it breaks down the road, but it just makes people sad. I know that there are people who love the thrill of the hunt, where it's like, oh, wow, look, I scored a carbon fiber Spyderco Shaman. I don't want to score a tool. I just want to put it in the freaking cart and be done with it. I don't need to be a hunter for these kinds of things. I know that for some people, there's a sense in which that collection itself can bring a joy. And again, in that case, sure, that's great. Then make different handle colors or something. Don't make it a functionally different tool. Just give a different handle color. Put a limited edition medallion in the freaking handle, then let those people go nuts. But the thing is, when you have something that is really a compellingly better and different tool, like for instance that Shaman, or like for instance this Crkt. This is the very best knife that Crkt has ever made, in my estimation. This is a titanium and M390 steel Homefront. It's beautifully dialed in. Every damn part of this knife is really, really nice. I am a really big fan of this, but no one can freaking buy them. And as a result, when I dropped a review of it, people were like, oh, great review, but you can't buy one. What are you doing, you jerk? It just makes people angry. It just makes people more sad when they try and get something, and with that, with the Shaman, but with a bunch of stuff. This is a really common story now. It's like, well, I logged on to the retailer's website for the sprint run, and I was logged in and everything, but because I had to update my address because the USPS, blah, blah, I missed out because I only got in the first 15 seconds. This is dumb. This is dumb. I'm sorry. It's a bad thing. Like, that just leaves people feeling really bad about the whole situation. And this can happen even in products that aren't limited. So this Pena right here is on the table not because it is a limited edition. In fact, I talked to Enrique, and he's planning to have more of these front flip attrapas made down the road. He's having to do them in batches and whatnot, which that I can kind of understand because A, there's a lot of financial outlay associated with it, and B, because he doesn't want to end up sitting on a bazillion of them, right? But nevertheless, there was a lot of negativity that came out of the release of this knife just because a lot of people who wanted one weren't able to get one. And, in that case, they're coming back down the pipe, which tends to make that a little bit better. It's just like, yeah, I missed the first batch, but I'll hold on and I'll get another one down the road. That makes it feel a little bit more okay. And actually the same thing with this little guy, the Shabazz Victorinox. This sold out within 8 hours, which still blows my freaking mind, by the way. But there will be more of these. I was on the horn, and the only way that I did this with Blade HQ is that they promised me that they would make more of them if they sold out. Such that, it wouldn't be a limited edition, because I don't freaking want any of that. But there were so many negative feelings that come up. I mean, there were negative issues on pretty much every forum involving this, involving that micarta shaman. I don't know of anybody who came out of that situation, except maybe the 5 freaking people or whatever who ended up with one of those, that actually felt good about the situation. For the most part, it's just like, wow, that sucks. And when you do this limited edition game, and especially when you don't make many of them, that's where most people end up feeling. It's just like, wow, that kind of sucks. And so that's another issue. And then the final thing that bothers me most about this is that it doesn't have to be this way. This is entirely artificial. Like I said, there are different approaches to doing these kinds of things. Like, okay, take this guy right here. I mean, A, they could have just made this a production knife. They could have just said, hey, M390 Homefronts. And then when they sold out, restocked them and such. That would have been the great situation. That would have been perfect. I can understand, though, if they're wanting to do this as a 25th anniversary edition for CRKT, then sure, okay, make it a collectible thing, but then make a regular mainline version of it. Do the same damn thing without the 25 on the handle, and you would have yourself an easy sale. Have a production version as well as a special limited edition 25th anniversary. Put a 25 in the corner here. That'll make people happy, and that way you can just be completely that way it's actually available. Or another approach, actually, Spyderco. Unfortunately, I love Spyderco. They do a lot of really nice knives, but they are a big they do this limited edition thing all the damn time, and it drives me up a wall. But even they have better solutions. This used to be a yellow LC200N Spyderco Native 5. It is not a limited edition. This is a knife that is a different steel with a different handle color, but it is in regular production. You should be able to get one of these, and at the moment, and this is an aftermarket clip, by the way, and I dyed the scales anyways, I digress. But nevertheless, this is a knife that you should be able to go out and buy. And if you're not able to go out and buy it, that means they're out of stock at the moment, but hang around and you'll be able to get another one later. This is, I think, the way that a lot of this probably should work. Like, for instance, this little configuration here, the S90V in carbon fiber. I mean, it's great. Say, yeah, hey, we're making a run of these guys, and it'll last until it stops making sense to do so. And so you make a run of them, and they sell out. Okay, great. That's a sign that you need to make more of them. And so you make freaking more of them, and then you ship those off to retailers. And you know what? They sell out too. Then you make some more, and maybe even make smaller batches. That's fine. I don't need anybody to be left making, 100,000 of these guys, but just keep making more of them if the demand gets strong. And that way, sure, there are always going to be some people that you discontinue the knife and they're like, oh man, I wanted one of those. But that's a fact of life. What bothers me is when you do it in such small quantity and you refuse to re-up afterwards. And then, on the dealer sprint side of things, there is so much, because it's the collector-driven Tulip Mania thing going on, there is a lot of pressure to do these as limited runs where it's just like, oh no, one and done. But it doesn't have to be that way. There's nothing stopping DLT from turning around and saying, hey, we want another batch of these guys. And again, just put on their website, hey, next batch of these guys should be here in July. So hang tight. That's a beautiful thing because, A, it takes a chunk out of the people who are reselling these guys. Because that's another thing that bothers me with these guys is like the moment something becomes limited edition, it feeds the parasites in the community. It feeds the people who buy a limited edition thing, not because they want it, but because they just want to flip it around and put it on eBay for $200 $20 more. And those people shouldn't be, no, that's bad. I have a whole separate rant about flippers. Again, it's in my Knife Gripe series, and I know that there are people who do that for a living and who feel like, oh, well, capitalism. No, anyways, if we can take the wind out of their sails by saying, hey, we're going to be having more of these guys in a few months, hang tight, that's a beautiful thing to me too. Maybe they'll move on to things that are benefiting the community a little bit more. But anyways, it doesn't have to be this way. There is no reason that they couldn't have just said, you know what, we're going to make some micarta shamans with crew wear. If those sell out, we'll get you another batch in 6 months or so. That's completely fine. Or even, you know what, hey, those sold out, so we're going to just keep this in production until they stop selling. Beautiful freaking thing. But it's artificial. And that's the ugliest thing to me, is it's FOMO. It's fear of missing out. It's artificial scarcity, and that doesn't need to be the freaking case. Because you can just make it a mainline production knife. You can keep making batches of them until they stop selling, like these two here. Or you could just make even if they were to turn around and make a version of this knife where the handle was anodized, to an olive drab green or something like that, and it doesn't have the 25th anniversary, that's perfect. That way, this was special, but the other one is regular production. There are ways to get around this. So I'm done with limited editions. I'm not saying that you can't do sprints. I'm not saying that you can't, we're going to do a different color G10 handle. But if you are making something that is new and better in any meaningful way, where you're actually making upgrades, just make enough of them. I'm sorry. I am so freaking tired of this. And I'm tired of the negativity that comes out of it. I'm tired of the people feeling like, oh, damn it, I didn't get one. I was there. I tried. I was logged in within 30 seconds of the drop, and I still missed. It's so ugly. And the fact that anybody thinks that's okay. I mean, sure, it's great for the retailer because they just made a bunch of freaking money. But no, I'm sorry that we shouldn't be supporting this, nor should we be supporting the eBay, scalpers coming up after. I'm done. So my deepest wish, perhaps, for 2019, although, I wish for for 2020, although I wish for many things in the knife game, but one of the biggest ones that I wish for right now is that we calm it down a little bit on the limited editions and consider making more great products regularly available. And Brian Nadeau is another good example of this. Unfortunately, I like Brian a lot. He's a wonderful human. But all of his really incredible knives, some of which are in the running for Knife of the Year, like the Typhoon Evo, etc., he's doing one batch of them and then stopping. And it's just like, it's done. And it's like, Brian, you're killing me over here. I don't care what you collect, is you're making good tools. Make them available to the people. Anyways, I could keep ranting about this for hours. Look, let me know your feelings down in the comments there below. I know that there are people who have strong opinions, people who are sprint run collectors, people who are eBay scalpers. There are people who, very strongly believe that, oh, this is great. But for me, at least, I'm done with it. I am so done with it. And there is no faster way to turn me off to your particular piece than to say, hey, guys, limited edition. Because no, just no. Can we stop? Can we limit this, please? So anyways, there you go. I hope this rant was remotely interesting to you. Let me know in the comments if you agree, if you disagree. Give me your reasoning. Let's have it out here. But for the love of God, makers, can we limit limited editions? Finally. Thank you. All right. Hope this has been interesting. Have yourselves an absolutely wonderful and fully available rest of your day. Bye now.